You drift through life, hoping change finds you, but real transformation doesn't come by chance. It comes by choice. You shift everything when you take control of your thoughts, your routines, and your vision. Greatness isn't for the lucky, it's for the bold. Why live small when you were built for more? In a few moments, I will teach you how to transform your life by shifting your mindset, habits, and daily focus. 1. Purpose. You were not born merely to take up space or to drift from one day to the next. You are here to live with meaning, to rise above the noise and routine and uncover a purpose that is entirely your own. There comes a point, often cloaked in stillness, when life quietly urges you to pause. But this stillness is not for rest. It is a sacred invitation to turn inward, to silence the external voices, and listen to the murmur of your soul. It is in this silence that purpose begins to speak, not with fanfare, but with clarity. It does not shout for attention. It simply waits to be recognized. And once glimpsed, it must not be brushed aside like a fleeting idea. It must be embraced like a lighthouse in the fog, guiding you toward the life you were always meant to live. You can continue on, fulfilling obligations, ticking boxes, and performing the daily rituals of work and responsibility. But without purpose, your journey lacks direction. You may move, but you are not progressing. The days slip by unnoticed, the months blur, and before you know it, the years have folded into decades. Yet, through it all, your soul is unwavering. It waits, patiently and persistently, asking, when will you awaken? When will you remember who you were before the world told you who to be? Understand this, no great endeavor has ever been born out of comfort. Every remarkable feat has been carried on the shoulders of someone possessed by a calling so fierce it would not let them rest. That is the nature of true purpose. It is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is not discovered in passing conversation or in the pages of a magazine. It is uncovered in the deep, sometimes difficult questions you ask yourself. What is worth sacrificing for? What would leave an ache in your heart if you reached your final days and had never tried? Close your eyes. Imagine yourself 30 days from now. You wake with anticipation, not because of obligation, but because your spirit is alight with direction. Each action is infused with intention. You speak, work, move, and live from a place that feels real. Imagine how this energy radiates outward. Your family notices a spark in your eyes. Your friends feel the depth in your presence. The world around you shifts in subtle but profound ways because your inner world has come alive. Now contrast this with the weight of purposelessness. The days stretch endlessly. The heart feels muted. Enthusiasm becomes a stranger. You go through the motions, but nothing feels anchored. This is not living, it is enduring. And yet, too many remain here, afraid to ask the questions that might change everything. But the truth is, you cannot afford to delay. One more week of drifting becomes one more month, then a year, and the soul does not wait forever. But what if you chose differently? What if today you made the decision to pursue your purpose with all that you are? What if you took the risk, faced the uncertainty, and leaned into the whisper that has been calling your name for years? The life you long for is not found in distant dreams, but in bold, intentional steps taken today. The fire that fuels greatness is already within you. It only needs to be stirred. So listen closely. Begin now. And never again settle for a life without meaning. 2. Definitiveness of goals. From the moment you take your first steps, you are taught to move forward. You learn to speak, to read, to interact with the world around you, but at no point during those early years are you handed a map showing you where to go. There is no course that tells you who you must become. And so, many people wander. They follow the flow of days and expectations, waiting for some sign, some spark. But you were never meant to drift through life like a leaf on the wind. You are not made of hesitation. You are built to choose, to decide. And every meaningful decision begins with a goal, a clear, specific, personal destination that pulls you forward. There is a stark difference between wishing and willing. A wish is a soft murmur in the night saying, "Wouldn't it be nice?" It is vague, fragile, and easily forgotten. But a goal is a roar. It declares, it will be done. It anchors you. It demands your focus and your commitment. You cannot move toward a vague idea and expect to arrive. You cannot chase the wind and hope to catch it. But give the wind a sail, give your energy a direction, and suddenly it becomes power. Without a goal, the hours of your day scatter like dust. Chores masquerade as achievement. Busyness cloaks itself in the illusion of progress while your spirit remains stuck. This is the step you cannot skip. Define the destination. Write it down, not as a hope or a maybe, but as a certainty. 1 month from now, where will you be? Speak it aloud. Frame it above your desk. Look at it every morning and declare, "This is where I'm going." Do not leave it to chance. Shape it with intent. When your mind knows where it's headed, it begins to find the way, no matter how winding the path. Picture yourself alone in a forest, holding a bow and arrow. If you fire without choosing a target, every arrow will vanish into the trees, every effort wasted. But mark one tree. Narrow your gaze. Take aim. Suddenly, every shot has meaning. Every draw of the bow is a choice backed by direction. Why should life be any different? Why spend days and months and years without a target? Clarity is power. If you cannot describe your goal in one simple sentence, then it still lives in the fog of fantasy. But if you can name it clearly, boldly, you have already begun. The first step toward anything worthwhile is naming it. What is it that you truly want? Not what you think you should want, not what others expect of you, but what ignites something deep within. Can you name it without flinching? That act alone is courage. And once it is named, once it is written and spoken and declared, you are no longer aimless. You have a point on the map. Every small action now serves a larger picture. Every step forward builds momentum, the distractions lose their shine, and your time begins to gather meaning. A goal is not just a destination. It is a mirror. It shows you what matters most. It reveals your priorities, your discipline, your hunger. So set one, aim true, and let every day be a step in that direction. Because drifting may feel easy, but deciding is where the real power lives, and that power is already yours. You only need to claim it. 3, daily discipline. Ambition can stir you awake in the early hours, pulse quickening with visions of the life you want. It burns bright in the mind, possibility, potential, the spark of something more. But left alone, ambition fades. Without consistency, it becomes like a firework in the night sky, dazzling, brief, and quickly gone. Purpose may be the flame in your chest, but it is discipline that feeds it. Discipline is the quiet builder, the unheralded engine. It lacks glamour, but it is where success hides, in the habits, the routines, the hours that pass unnoticed by the world. Discipline is not thrilling, it is not drenched in applause or spotlight, but it is the difference between a dream spoken and a dream lived. Consider the image of a castle rising from the ground. Every towering wall began with one brick, one placed in the rain, one laid after a night of little sleep, another fitted while others rested or complained. It wasn't talent alone, it wasn't luck, it was a decision repeated, over and over, and so your life will rise the same way, not in meteoric bursts, but in the devotion you show to your purpose each day, especially when no one is watching. Think for a moment. What would happen if just for 30 days you honored a rhythm? You woke at the same time. You worked with intention for 2 focused hours on what matters most. You guarded your energy like treasure, spent your moments like gold. Would the world notice? Perhaps not right away, but you would. You would feel the shift inside. You would begin to believe in your own seriousness, not because of a grand result, but because of the promise kept. The outside world may not reward every disciplined hour. You may not be applauded for choosing focus over comfort or routine over indulgence, but something in you will begin to harden, to strengthen. You will move from wishing to becoming, and that shift is everything. True transformation rarely announces itself. It shows up quietly in the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way your eyes no longer dart with doubt. It arrives in the way you begin to trust yourself. Discipline is not punishment. It is permission. Permission to become who you were always meant to be. It is the bridge between potential and reality. When the temptation comes to skip the work, to rest when it isn't earned, to drift from your path, pause. Ask yourself, what must I do today that echoes my goal tomorrow? Is this moment building me or breaking me? Would the future version of me, the one who has what I want, choose to skip this? These are the choices that shape a life, not the grand ones, the small, consistent ones. Discipline is saying yes when comfort says no. It is showing up when the thrill is gone. It is trusting that the steps you take in the dark will lead you to light. Others may not see the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices, but they will see the results. They will see the confidence, the clarity, the calm power in your actions. And when that day comes, when your results speak louder than your efforts ever could, you will not wish you had given more time. You will know you gave it. You will look back and realize that discipline wasn't the enemy of joy. It was its foundation. Success does not shout. It whispers through the habits of the disciplined. So ask yourself, will you give the hours or only wish you had later. 4. Faith in self. When you look into the mirror, what do you see staring back at you? Is it the reflection of a giant standing tall in quiet strength? Or is it the faint outline of a ghost, present but fading, filled with potential but empty of belief? Every soul is born carrying a spark of possibility, but so many let that spark die, smothered by doubt, by fear, by the subtle lies whispered over a lifetime. They are told to be realistic, to play small, to fit into molds that were never shaped for them, and they begin to forget the power they once felt in their dreams. Faith in oneself is not arrogance, it is reverence. It is understanding that your life is not an accident, that you have been entrusted with something no one else possesses, your vision, your path, your voice. No other being on this earth has what you have been given. To doubt that is not humility, it is theft. A theft from the world and a betrayal of the purpose placed inside you. Others will not always see what you see. They may dismiss your vision. They may laugh. They may warn you to be careful, to be realistic, to stop chasing illusions. But they are not you. Their job is not to believe. Yours is, because you cannot build what you do not believe in. You cannot create what you secretly fear you don't deserve. This month, more than ever, you must feed your faith more than your fear. Every day, you must choose to water belief, not doubt. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself in a room filled with voices. Each one speaks something different. One says you're too late, another reminds you of past mistakes, one scoffs that others are better, smarter, more prepared, and in the far corner, almost drowned out, a single whisper says, "You can do it." That voice is quiet, but it is yours. That whisper is truth. Walk toward it, stand beside it. Turn up its volume until it becomes a roar in your chest. Let it become the soundtrack to your days. You will be tempted to hesitate. You will feel the pull to delay, to wait for certainty, for some kind of external confirmation. In those moments, ask yourself, who benefits from my doubt? Who gains when I sit back in fear? And more importantly, who might I become if, just for 30 days, I chose to trust myself fully, not partially, not when it's easy, but all the way? What would shift in your presence? Would your shoulders straighten? Would your voice stop trembling? Would your steps grow firmer and your eyes shine with clarity? You were never meant to cower. You were meant to rise. And rising begins not with applause or permission, but with belief, the kind that blooms quietly in solitude and grows louder with every step taken in trust. If you could see the future waiting for you, the lives you could touch, the work you could create, the peace you could feel, you would never again question your worth. So today, begin the shift. Turn away from the ghosts of past failure. Face the giant within you. Believe not because it's easy, but because it is the only way forward. The world doesn't need more people who doubt. It needs people who dare, who dream, who trust. And if you can hold that belief for 30 days, you will not be the same. You will walk like one who knows exactly who they are, and nothing is more powerful than that. So think about that. 5. Persistence. There will come a day when you want to stop. The sky will gray, your limbs will ache, and the path ahead will seem too long, too steep. You will be tempted to quit, not because you are weak, but because the journey has demanded everything from you. The weather will shift against you, your energy will flicker low, and the people you thought would stand beside you may disappear. Doubt will come cloaked as reason, fatigue will come wearing the mask of logic. But in these moments you must remember, persistence is the bridge between effort and outcome. It is the quiet force that carries you from where you are to where you long to be. Starting is easy. Everyone begins. The world is full of good intentions and half-built dreams. But endurance, that is rare. It is the quiet choice made day after day, when the applause fades and the road stretches on without promise. Few keep walking when the reward feels distant. Fewer still push forward when every step is met with resistance. But it is here, in the unseen hours, that life tests your will. And only those who persist get to witness the mountain finally revealing its peak. Imagine for a moment that you are digging for water. 10 feet down and the soil is dry. 20 feet and still nothing. With each scoop of earth, frustration builds. You begin to wonder if the well even exists. Then at 30 feet, the ground shifts. A trickle becomes a flow. The well bursts open and everything changes. Had you stopped at 29, you would have walked away calling the land barren. You would have sworn the water was never there, but it was. You just hadn't gone deep enough. Life works the same way. Most give up a breath before the breakthrough. What if every failure was not a stop sign, but a signal? What if the delays were questions, not punishments? What if the universe, life, God, whatever you believe in, was simply asking you, how badly do you want this? Persistence is not about blind effort. It is about answering that question with your actions. It is saying, even when every door seems closed, I will find a window. If you were to fall today, would you rise again? Would you stand without applause, without recognition, and still walk forward? Because that is where your commitment is measured. Not in your plans, not in your hopes, but in your resilience when no one is watching. The world will test you, not to break you, but to reveal you. The journey filters the committed from the curious. Let this month be different. Let this be the time you push through the wall instead of turning back. Not just past the first pain or the second rejection, but all the way to the end. Decide that you will not be counted among those who almost made it. Let your story be one of completion, not close calls, because the truth is most people don't fail, they stop. And the moment you stop, you bury the very effort that might have changed everything. When you reach the finish line, and you will, people will ask how you did it. They will want to know the secret. And you won't speak of luck or shortcuts. You will look them in the eye, steady and certain, and say the words most never get to say. I never gave up. 6. Courage. There are moments when you take a step and feel as though the ground beneath you disappears. Your chest tightens, your breath shortens, and the mind screams for safety. Yet your feet move anyway. That is courage. Not the absence of fear, but the strength to move in spite of it. It rarely arrives with trumpets or applause. More often it is a quiet resolve forged in solitude. It roars not outwardly, but within, where the battle is fiercest. In those private, trembling seconds where retreat is easiest, courage urges you forward. And in doing so, you begin to change everything. Fear has a voice. It is sly, persuasive, and relentless. It whispers half-truths with absolute conviction. That you're not ready, that others will laugh, that failing will break you. But these are the ghosts of a life not fully lived. They can rattle their chains, but they cannot harm you unless you believe them. They thrive on your stillness, your silence, your refusal to move. But the moment you act, the moment you speak, leap, try, those voices lose their grip. Fear feeds on hesitation, but boldness blinds it. Life responds to movement, not to intentions, not to perfect timing, but to the act of stepping forward. One act of courage may not shift the world on its axis, but it can shift yours. And that is enough. That is how all great change begins, not in grand proclamations, but in small moments where fear is confronted and action is chosen. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a river. On the other side is everything you desire, the life you dream of, the work that ignites you, the love that fulfills you. Between you and it stands a narrow bridge. It creaks, it sways, it looks old and uncertain. And fear begs you to stay on this side. Maybe it says, another bridge will appear, wider, stronger, safer. But what if it never does? What if this is the only bridge and it holds just fine? Would you cross it then? Would you take the step, heart-pounding, knowing it leads you home? This is the moment courage is born, not in waiting for fear to vanish, but in choosing to move with it strapped to your back. It may scream, but you do not have to listen. You only have to walk. Ask yourself, what if the very thing you are avoiding is the path that holds your future? What if the challenge you fear is the doorway to your next chapter? Courage does not demand you become fearless. It only asks you to be faithful to your growth, your truth, your journey. Now imagine what would shift if you practiced this daily. What if once each day for the next month you stood tall in discomfort, spoke when your voice trembled, acted when doubt circled like a vulture? Would you still recognize yourself at the end of those 30 days? Or would you see someone new, someone bolder, clearer, more alive? Transformation does not come by waiting. It arrives through risk, through trembling hands that reach anyway, shaking legs that walk anyway, uncertain minds that choose anyway. Every time you choose courage, you rewrite the story you live in. And one day, you'll look back across that river, across that narrow bridge, and smile at the person who dared to cross, the one who stopped waiting for certainty and decided instead to be brave. 7. Positive mental attitude. Each morning, you rise not into the world as it is, but into the world as you perceive it to be. Reality is shaped less by the facts around you and more by the lens through which you view them. Two people can walk the same road, face the same winds, and stumble on the same stones, yet one sees challenge while the other sees ruin. The difference is not the journey itself, but the mindset brought to it. Your attitude is not just an accessory to your life, it is the architect. A positive attitude is often misunderstood. It is not a denial of difficulty, nor is it the foolish hope that everything will always go your way. It is the conscious decision to refuse despair. It sees the storm, but chooses to seek shelter rather than surrender. It understands that pain may be inevitable, but suffering is often optional. To approach life with positivity is to say, this moment may not be perfect, but I will not let it poison my perspective. It is to find value in hardship, to believe that hope still breathes in uncertainty. This kind of attitude becomes a silent magnet, drawing in unexpected allies, hidden solutions, and moments of grace that would have gone unseen by an eye trained only for disappointment. Imagine if you began each day expecting good things, not as a guarantee, but as an intention. You rise not waiting for trouble, but looking for meaning. You speak kindly, even to those who remain distant. You greet setbacks not as signs of inadequacy, but as sharpening stones. Failures no longer spell defeat. They become the fertile ground from which resilience grows. Wouldn't your days feel lighter? Wouldn't your heart feel stronger? Wouldn't you begin to notice that life itself responds more generously when approached with openness rather than suspicion? Ask yourself this. When you enter a room, do you add warmth or pull energy away? When chaos appears, are you the anchor or the amplifier? Your presence speaks before your words do, and your attitude writes that speech every morning. You may not control the weather, the news, or the moods of those around you, but you always control one thing, your mind. Do you train it as you would a muscle, teaching it discipline, strength, and stillness? Or do you let it roam unchecked, picking up every thorn, every doubt, every shadow it finds? Let the next 30 days become a kind of laboratory. Observe the thoughts that pass through you. Begin each day by choosing your focus with care, like selecting tools before building a home. Practice seeing the good, even when it hides behind inconvenience. Be generous with your encouragement. Speak kindly, not just to others, but to yourself. Expect the best, not as entitlement, but as a way of opening your heart to receive what is possible. You may be surprised by what begins to change, not because the world itself suddenly becomes easier, but because your interaction with it becomes more empowered. You begin to see options where before there were only dead ends. You find strength in places where you used to fold. And perhaps, most importantly, you become a person others can lean on, not because your life is perfect, but because your mindset is practiced. This month, let your attitude be your experiment. Let it become a light you tend daily, not waiting for outside forces to brighten it. Choose joy, not because life is simple, but because you are strong. Choose kindness, not because people always deserve it, but because it defines who you are. And in doing so, watch how the world, little by little, begins to rise to meet you. 8. Time. Each morning, without fail, you are gifted something priceless. A bag of gold, invisible but immeasurably valuable. It contains 24 golden coins, each representing an hour of your life. No matter who you are, where you live, or what you believe, you receive the same sum. Yet, unlike gold, these coins cannot be stored or reclaimed. They must be spent. And once spent, they are gone forever. Still, so many live as if time is infinite. They drift from moment to moment, unaware that the currency of their future is being used up in real time. The illusion of abundance blinds them to the truth. Time is not promised, only given. And no matter how rich, powerful, or wise one becomes, no one can purchase a second more. You cannot trade for it. You cannot pause it. You can only use it, intentionally or carelessly. Those who rise to greatness are not blessed with extra time. They simply make different choices. They look at the same 24 hours not as a burden to endure, but as a vault of potential waiting to be unlocked. They understand that every hour has weight. Every moment is either a step toward purpose or a drift toward regret. A wasted hour is not just lost time. It is a lost opportunity, a delayed dream, a moment of brilliance left unexplored. Reflect for a moment on your last week. Trace the hours in your mind. How many of them truly served your highest vision? How many were filled with purpose, learning, building, creating? And how many dissolved into distractions, habits of comfort, conversations that went nowhere? This is not about guilt. It is about awareness, because awareness is the gateway to change. Now imagine if you reclaimed just 2 more focused hours each day. Not 10, not 5, just 2. That's 60 hours in a month, 60 hours poured directly into the life you want to build. Imagine what could shift. Imagine what could finally begin. Consider the farmer, whose entire year depends on a single season. Each sunrise brings decisions: when to plant, when to water, when to tend, when to rest. There is no space for casual waste, because every action touches the outcome. You too are in a growing season. Every day you plant habits. Every moment you sow mindset. What you water grows. What you neglect withers. And soon enough, harvest will come. When it does, what will you have to show for the hours you were given? Ask yourself with honesty, if today were your last, would you be content with how you spent it? Would you smile at your efforts, your presence, your intention? Or would you beg for just one more hour, not to waste, but to finally use with clarity? If that thought stirs something in you, let it guide you now. Let it shift the way you see this very hour. You don't need to overhaul your life in a single day, but you do need to begin valuing your time as it deserves. Start treating each hour as a vote for the life you want. Spend it with purpose. Guard it with grace. Fill it with what matters, because the truth is, every hour has always counted. It always will. The question is, will you count it too? 9. Environment. You may hold within you the seed of something remarkable, a calling, a dream, a vision that pulses with the potential to grow into greatness. But no matter how strong the seed, it cannot thrive if planted in the wrong soil. A seed needs more than its own will to grow. It needs sunlight, water, air, and space. And in much the same way, your purpose needs a nourishing environment. It needs people who challenge and support you, spaces that breathe life into your focus, and energies that match your ambition. If your surroundings are poor, if they are filled with negativity, distraction, and doubt, even the strongest seed can wither. Consider the flower growing in the wild. If it finds itself under the dense canopy of tall trees, it may receive only fragments of light. It will struggle to grow, not because it lacks the will or the beauty, but because it is trapped in shadow. Yet when that same flower is moved into a patch of open ground, where sunlight pours in, where the soil is rich and the air is clean, it begins to bloom. It opens itself fully. It shows the world what it was always capable of. You are no different. Your environment is more than your location. It is the entire ecosystem that surrounds your mind and spirit. It is the people you speak to every day. It is the content you consume, the conversations you entertain, the energy you allow into your space. Every input becomes an influence. Every voice you hear becomes part of your internal dialogue. This is not something to take lightly, because over time your surroundings either shape you into the person you're trying to become or slowly wear you down until you forget who that person even was. Ask yourself, honestly, who do you speak with each day? Do they lift you higher or weigh you down? Do they see your potential or project their limits onto you? And what do you consume when no one is watching? What fills your ears, your screen, your thoughts? Does it make you feel more capable or more confused? These questions aren't small. They are the foundation of your personal growth. Imagine spending the next 30 days surrounded by people who respect your time, stretch your thinking, and speak to you like your dream matters. Picture what could shift